Just across the Rio Grande River from Brownsville, Texas, is a popular vacation spot for college students called Matamoros, Mexico. It is especially popular during spring break, as hundreds of thousands of college students flood Brownsville and Matamoros. The students that descended upon Matamoros in March 1989 had no idea of the increasing crime in the area. In just 3 months, Matamoros had 60 unsolved disappearances since New Year's Day. 21-year-old Mark Kilroy was a student of the University of Texas enjoying spring break with his friends. In the early hours of March 14, 1989, Mark's friends lost track of him in Matamoros and reported him missing the next day. Mark shared no common traits with those who had disappeared before him, as he was Caucasian. His disappearance garnered a lot of attention because his uncle was employed at the U.S. Customs Service. With this connection, Matamoros immediately felt the heat to find the 21-year-old. A $15,000 reward was offered for information about Mark's safe return or the arrest of his abductors. While American officials kept a close eye on the case, Matamoros authorities interrogated 127 known criminals, but their efforts would lead to a dead end. At the same time of Mark Kilroy's disappearance, Mexican authorities were busy with one of their anti-drug campaigns. These operations were designed to target those lower on the totem pole while leaving drug lords untouched. On April 1st, 1989, a well-known henchman, 20-year-old Serafin Hernandez Garcia, drove past a police checkpoint. Officers pursued him, leading them to a rundown ranch nearby, where they found drugs and paraphernalia. 8 days later, authorities returned in force, arresting Serafin Hernandez and David Serna Valdez. While in custody, the pair insisted that authorities could not hold them because they were protected by power over and above man's law. But even with these claims, the two remained in jail while investigators questioned a caretaker at the ranch. This caretaker at the Rancho Santa Elena was quick to name other members of the drug syndicate who frequently visited the ranch. When shown a picture of Mark Kilroy, the caretaker identified the 21-year-old. Serafin Hernandez admitted to authorities in participating in Kilroy's abduction and murder. He would further admit to other sacrifices that he and those who frequented the ranch participated in, explaining, "It's our religion, our voodoo, a cult formed by El Padrino, the Godfather, Adolfo de Jesus Constanzo." Welcome to another episode of Crimson Sin with Tamsin Leigh. I am your host, Tamsin Leigh. Full show notes and sources can be found in the description. You can also check out my Patreon and Buy Me a Coffee pages, where I post the latest updates and behind-the-scenes exclusives. Also in the description is a link to the Tamsin Leigh shop, where you can find something for everyone. Today's case brings us to Matamoros, Mexico, after an American college student vacationing on spring break was abducted. His missing persons case quickly turned into one of the most shocking discoveries in the Mexican city. Adolfo was born in Miami, Florida on November 1st, 1962, to a 15-year-old Cuban immigrant. He was the firstborn of 3 children who were all fathered by different men. His mother, Delia Aurora Gonzalez del Valle, had her son blessed when he was 6 months old by a Haitian priest of Palo Mayombe. The priest told Delia that her son was a chosen one destined for great power. While Adolfo was still an infant, he and his mother moved to San Juan, Puerto Rico, where he was baptized a Catholic and served as an altar boy. Even though they were Catholic, Delia kept her true faith in Palo Mayombe a secret, immersing herself and her son and entrusting his magic education to practitioners in San Juan and Haiti. The family returned to Miami in 1972, with Adolfo starting his full-time apprenticeship with a Haitian priest in Little Havana. Delia was a career criminal, being arrested 30 times on numerous charges. She had a rap sheet ranging from trespassing to shoplifting, convicted of check fraud, grand theft, and even child neglect. However, she was always able to get away with a slap on the wrist. Delia would credit these lenient punishments to her Haitian religion. She would leave numerous rented houses in Miami vandalized, bloodstained, and littered with the remains of animals she had sacrificed. Neighbors claimed the mother was a witch, and those who angered her would find headless goats or chickens on their doorsteps. Delia would eventually marry a man who was involved in religion and drug dealing. Adolfo would follow in his mother's footsteps when it came to crime, and the pair would be arrested on multiple occasions for theft, vandalism, and shoplifting. His mother would later claim in 1976 that her son started to display psychic powers, as he was able to predict future events with astounding accuracy. Months before the 1981 shooting of President Ronald Reagan, Adolfo allegedly predicted the incident and claimed Reagan would survive his wounds. He was not a studious student when it came to school, graduating near the bottom of his high school class, but he excelled in black magic, learning the secrets of witchcraft from his mentor. With his mentor, the two would rob graves to stock the priest's cauldron and pour blood over voodoo dolls to curse their enemies. In the Palo Mayombe religion, there is no line between black and white magic, so every practitioner can choose their own path without prejudice. Adolfo was also a promising student when it came to learning about the drug trade, from his godfather who once told him, "Let the non-believers kill themselves with drugs. We will profit from their foolishness." In early 1983, Adolfo chose his patron saint, pledging himself to Kadimpembe, I'm sorry if I mispronounced that, which is his religion's version of the devil. So he's basically the devil. He devoted himself to the worship of evil for profit, with his final initiation including ritual scarring. His mentor took a knife to carve mystic symbols into Adolfo's skin, and with that, he was ready to lead. Later in 1983, Adolfo moved to Mexico City for a modeling gig and spent his free time telling fortunes with tarot cards in Zona Rosa, which is a popular hangout for prostitutes. While there, he would meet and recruit his first followers, Martin Rodriguez, Jorge Montes, and Omar Ochoa. Adolfo would seduce Martin and Omar, claiming one as his man and the other as his woman, depending on his romantic musings at the moment. He would return to Miami, but by mid-1984, moved to Mexico City permanently and recruited new followers as his magic reputation spread throughout the city. Word spread of his psychic abilities, and he offered ritual cleansings for those who felt enemies had cursed them. Of course, his services were not for free, as Adolfo diligently documented each of his customers and charges. He had 31 regular customers, with some paying up to $4,500 for his services. He established a profitable business by casting spells to bring good luck with expensive ritual sacrifices of chickens, goats, snakes, zebras, and lion cubs. A menu was formed with roosters going for $6 each. Goats were $30 each, boa constrictors were $450 each, zebras were $1,100 each, and African lion cubs were $3,100 each. Many of his clients were rich drug dealers and hitmen who enjoyed the violence of his magical displays. His mysticism attracted other rich members of Mexican society, including several high-ranking corrupt policemen who would go on to introduce Adolfo to the city's powerful drug cartels. He would go on to help schedule shipments and meetings based solely on his predictions. Upon payment, he would also offer magic that would make gangsters and their bodyguards invisible to police and bulletproof against their enemies. According to his journals, one dealer in Mexico City paid Adolfo $40,000 in magical services over 3 years. By 1985, Adolfo was well established and would go with 3 of his followers to raid a Mexico City graveyard for human bones to start his own bloody cauldron. His followers at this time included a physician, a real estate speculator, fashion models, and nightclub performers. But probably the most astounding were those with influence and power. At least 4 members of the federal judicial police joined Adolfo's cult. Salvador Garcia Alarcon was a commander in charge of narcotics investigations, and Florentino Ventura Gutierrez was the head of the Mexican branch of Interpol. Bribery amongst all levels of law enforcement and federal agents, as well as these individuals becoming triggermen, is nothing new. But the devotion of Adolfo's followers appeared to run deeper than greed. They worshipped Adolfo as a god who was their living conduit to the spirit world and ambassador to hell. Florentino introduced Adolfo to the drug-dealing Calzada family in 1986. They were one of Mexico's dominant narcotics cartels at the time. He immediately won the cartel over with his magical practices and was immensely compensated for it. By early 1987, Adolfo was able to pay $60,000 in cash for a condominium in Mexico City and buy himself a fleet of luxury vehicles, including an $80,000 Mercedes-Benz. When he wasn't offering his magical services to the Calzadas or other clients, Adolfo had other scams up his sleeve. For instance, he once posed as a DEA agent to rip off a Guadalajara dealer. He then sold the stash he acquired for $100,000 through his police contacts. At some point in time during all of these ventures, he decided that the spirits of the dead from the bones he collected from the graveyard were not strong enough. He needed his cauldron to be stronger with live human sacrifices instead of these old bones and animals. The total amount of these sacrifices has not been determined. However, 23 ritual murders were well documented, not to mention a slew of unsolved mutilation slayings around Mexico City during the same time. Needless to say, the ruthless drug dealer remained loyal clients and were very impressed at Adolfo's willingness to torture and kill strangers and close friends alike. It did not take long for all of this power to go to Adolfo's head. After working with the Constanzo family for a year, he believed his magical powers were the sole reason the family continued to experience success and survival. So, in April 1987, he demanded a full partnership in the syndicate and was refused. The rejection appeared to be of no concern to Adolfo, but internally, he started planning his revenge. Guillermo Calzada Sanchez and 6 members of his household mysteriously vanished on April 30th, 1987. They were reported missing to authorities on May 1st, with officers noting melted candles along with other evidence of a strange religious ceremony that was conducted in Calzada's office. 6 days later, authorities found mutilated remains in the Sumpango River. They recovered 7 corpses within a week, all bearing signs of sadistic torture. All of the bodies recovered were missing their fingers, toes, and ears, and their hearts and genitals were missing. 2 of the corpses were missing their brains, and one had part of the spine ripped from their body. The missing parts fed Adolfo's cauldron, building up his strength for greater conquests to come. And by July 1987, he had an eye on his next targets. Sara Maria Aldrete was the daughter of a Matamoros electrician born on September 6, 1964. While attending high school across the border at Porter High School in Brownsville, Texas, teachers remembered her as a good model student. She maintained her star pupil status while attending a secretarial school. It was here that instructors urged Sara to attend a real college. However, young and in love, she decided against it. On October 31st, 1983, Sara married Miguel Zacharias, a Brownsville resident 11 years older than her. Unfortunately, the relationship soured quickly, and 5 months later, the couple was separated. She received resident alien status in the United States in 1985 and proceeded to enroll at a 2-year school in Brownsville, Texas, Southmost College. Sara was admitted to a work-study program, and she began classes in January 1986 as a physical education major. She also worked 2 part-time jobs as an aerobics teacher and an assistant secretary in the school's athletic department. She held excellent grades and was on the honor roll throughout her academic career. Sara would also organize and lead a booster club for the college's soccer team. Aside from her academic success, Sara also stood out physically. She stood at 6'1", which is unusually tall. After divorcing her husband, Sara moved back home with her parents in Matamoros, where she would spend most of her weekends and school vacations. In 1987, the attractive student was popular with men and began dating a drug dealer named Gilberto Sosa, who was associated with the powerful Hernandez family. On July 30th, 1987, Sara was driving in Matamoros when a shiny new Mercedes cut her off in traffic. She narrowly avoided an accident. The driver of the brand new Mercedes was Adolfo Constanzo. He immediately began apologizing. Upon their first meeting, both instantly felt the chemistry between them. But this meeting wasn't just fate. Adolfo had been keeping a close eye on Gilberto Sosa. Meeting Sara was carefully staged and all part of his plan. Just as their blossoming friendship and her introduction into the cult. 2 weeks after their meeting, Adolfo met Sara and Gilberto in Brownsville, where he purposefully refused to shake Gilberto's hand. A few days later, Gilberto received a call that Sara was seeing another man behind his back. Jealous, he confronted his girlfriend. But even though she denied the claims, Gilberto didn't believe her and broke up with her. Heartbroken, she turned to Adolfo for comfort. And he claimed to have known about the impending breakup through his tarot cards. The two would eventually become physical, but this union was very short-lived, as Adolfo made it abundantly clear to Sara that he enjoyed the company of men more. She accepted his preferences, even though she wasn't exactly happy about it, but she had already become hooked on the religious aspect of their relationship. By the end of summer, Sara's classmates saw the profound change in her, as she seemingly became an expert on witchcraft and magic overnight. Adolfo would call her La Madrina, the godmother, of his growing cult, entrusting her with his followers while he was shipping drugs over the border. El Padrino would pry into her links to the Hernandez family. He would also tell her the leader, Elio, would soon approach her for advice about a problem. In November 1987, Elio did just this, and she introduced the dealer to Adolfo. The Hernandez clan was falling apart as their syndicate was torn by division and threatened by competitors. Adolfo convinced Elio and his henchmen that Palo Mayombe could solve all of their problems. He claimed their enemies could be eliminated with sacrificial rituals, which would also keep the syndicate safe. Adolfo maintained that if they were loyal to him, all of his followers would become invisible to the authorities and bulletproof during combat. He promised all of this in exchange for 50% of the family's profits, as well as control of the family. In 1988, Adolfo and his cult moved their headquarters to Rancho Santa Elena, 20 miles from Matamoros, where his rituals became more elaborate and sadistic. On May 28, 1988, Adolfo shot drug dealer Hector de la Fuente and a farmer named Moses Castillo, but these sacrifices did not satisfy him. On July 16th, while in Mexico City, he supervised the torture and dismemberment of Raul Paz Esquivel, a former lover of cult member Jorge Montes. His remains were disposed of on a public street, which was discovered by children.